Assalamu alaikum to all of our Halal Talks listeners. This is your host, Abir, and you're listening to episode number 9 with Hina and Zeeshan Mukhtar. We talk about homeschooling and the experiences that Hina and her children had and how that led to the foundation and the founding of Ilmtree. A wonderful conversation with them. Please enjoy, and let's dive right into it.
You are now listening to Halal Talks.
Islam kind of really came into your lives. How did you continue to foster that after that?
By having to teach it. By having to teach it to our kids. I learned more of the sunnah du'as when I had to teach them to my children, and more about the life of the Prophet ﷺ when I had to teach it to my kids. And then knowing that we had to model like whatever we were expecting of them. And then also we consciously sought out good suhbah for them. Like we had a very, very different group of friends before. And I'm sad to say it wasn't a very beneficial crowd for us. They were Muslims. After a long time, we finally made Muslim friends here and we were excited. But they weren't actually practicing Muslims. And it wasn't a very positive environment to be in. And I remember thinking, I don't want my kids growing up around this, and I don't want this to become the norm for them. And so we actually chose friends that I don't think we normally would have chosen on our own. Like they weren't necessarily what appealed to us in the coolness factor, you know? But because we liked the way they were raising their kids and we were like-minded in what we wanted, we sought them out as friends, and they've become like family for us. And we literally have raised our kids together. I don't have a lot of family up here, and neither do they. And we've become each other's family.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that we consciously chose different friends. It was like our screening pattern changed. So before we used to look for friends to do something with. Once you have children, you look for people to raise your children with. And so your screening pattern kind of changes. So if you're lucky, alhamdulillah, we're blessed that happened. The concern was, having deen in our children's lives. And so our screening pattern for who we wanted to be with changed. I never even thought like, oh, these aren't people I would choose as friends to go out with. We didn't think that way. We kind of thought like, wow, look at how concerned they are about their children, and how beautiful some of their ideas are. They're idealistic. So let's join them. And I remember Hina picked up a flyer at one of the Indian stores.
Yeah, somewhere.
And it was, we're having a meeting to look at opening a Muslim children's school.
Preschool.
Yeah, preschool. And it was like, okay, let's go to this preschool, because that was now our priority, and so we did that. And then we met these amazing people. Allah brought these amazing people into our lives, and we ended up having a play circle that then turned into a homeschooling circle that then turned into Ilmtree. And now, mashallah, 37 families are there, and it's on a ranch, and it's this beautiful thing. So you never know what that first step is that you uncover.
And I think for just my own experience, what I've seen as I've gone through the evolution of my own journey, I kind of really relate to what you both are saying about how you guys had to choose your friends. At some point, even your own internal evolution of, oh, you know what, I don't want to go to this event anymore because of this reason. You see your friends can start to evolve with you, or they will choose their own path as well to not be with you. So it almost kind of happens sometimes organically as well that I've seen.
So what I'm wondering is, what was the process like leaving your old friends?
It was, one was that we started changing so much that they were a little uncomfortable with the changes.
The chemistry was getting ruined.
Pardon?
The chemistry was getting
the
ruined.
chemistry was getting ruined. Yeah. And we kind of were, I think we were like downers for them. Not that we were preaching. We weren't like going around lecturing to everyone about how to be, but just you could feel. And for a long time, we tried to hold on to each other, because it was kind of like, no, everything's still cool, Well,
there's this love in the heart that's still there.
Yeah, that's still there. One of our really good old friends called me just the other day, and it was just like old times, mashallah. And but things, I mean, I won't lie, nothing's changed. It's been 20 years, and that social group is still doing the exact same thing they were doing 20 years ago. And I'm so grateful that we're not stuck where we were 20 years ago.
And we kept ties. I mean, we would go to dinner. They would invite us. We would go to dinner. But there was this point in the night where it's like Hina and I would look at each other like, okay, we just have to kindly and very gently say it's time to go. Because, now the evening is getting to the point where we've had dinner, we've socialized with them, the niceties have been exchanged. But now they're going to, mingle into the night in a very different way. And we'd be like, okay, well, we very gently kind of excuse ourselves. And they were fine with it too.
And then eventually we stopped getting invited
Yes.
and to things, and we weren't hurt. We weren't hurt about it. In fact,
Finally.
yeah. And we were really clear that even with some of them, we were fine meeting one-on-one, but we didn't necessarily want to meet in the big social groups anymore. So yeah, just like you were saying, like the priorities change, and then you start evolving, and your friends evolve, and sometimes you evolve in different directions. But even now, whenever there's a big test or trial or tribulation in their lives, and some of those close friends' lives, they will still call us, and we're like the first people they'll call and say that I need your prayers, or this is what's going on, give me some advice. And so it's nice to know that that they know they can rely on us for when it really matters.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just partying and hanging out, yeah, we're not the people they call anymore, and that's fine.
Yeah, when the chips are down, But they also were bringing other friends into their lives that were busying them. And so it wasn't like we had this consistently fixed circle and we just dropped out and it was so noticeable. It was like more organic. They had other people coming into life, and we didn't know their other friends. So they were also expanding their circle. And so that happened. But the other thing is just this idea that we're so programmable. Like we know computers are just going to spit out what the operating system, says it's going to do. But as human beings, we think we're more Teflon. Like, oh, I can go to this, but be cool. I'm still Z, but really you're not. And so who you choose is really going to determine who you are. And that's even as adults, we have to be conscious of it. But for our children especially, we have to be very conscious of it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we always talk about how it's so important to have good friends for your kids, but it's just as important for the parents to choose to have good friends for themselves as well, because they become part of that circle that the kids take from.
Yeah, I remember Amin would get excited for Talif when he was little. He was like 12 or 13. And I remember Sean and Amin going there, and all these like 17, 18-year-old kids kind of shaking their hands, giving them the bro hug and everything. I was like, to me, they're my kids. They're little kids. But to them, you can watch the teens, bringing the preteens into their circle.
Yeah.
Like acknowledging that you're not a kid anymore, and you're cool. And I can talk to you about, LeBron or this or that. My children started to interact. And then later on, I saw at Talif that my kids were the ones doing that to the preteens. And there's this evolution of giving them something that they look up to, and then there can be a part of, and then later on they give that back.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And it's very important to have those spaces. And our mosques need to be those spaces. Instead of walking in going, hey, why'd you leave your shoes there? Don't run, don't yell, blah, 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 blah. The space has to be like, welcome, marhaban. I'm glad you're here. There's this like real vibe when you walk into Talif. Even if you walk with your shoes on the carpet, nobody's going to say anything to you because you're there and you're not somewhere else. And I think that our mosques tend to sometimes, I think, have that feeling like people are so fixed on the job they have to do in the shoe committee that's what it's about. And that's fine for adults. Don't park here. Don't put your shoes here. But for kids, make that place loving when they walk in.
Right.
Don't be the scary uncle, who's going to yell at them for the shoes or for you. Let them just be excited for 3 minutes.
Yeah. And just being there is such a huge step.
It's a huge step.
Compared to all the other youth.
Where there could be 10,000 other places that you don't want them to be. They're at the mosque.
Absolutely.
So
all these changes are happening in your life at that period of time. You started wearing hijab. You even left the social circle that you were part of. What did your family think during this time? My
family was thrilled, for sure. because I was probably one of the last people to to change, you know, in that positive direction. That the rest of my family was like way ahead of me, mashallah.
Well, the joke in Hina's family is that she moved away and married a white CIA agent who's secretly living as a Pakistani. So, you know, so
Or possibly Puerto Rican.
yeah, Puerto Rican CIA
With Christmas trees in his house.
Yeah. So in the beginning, the joke would be like, "Oh, Hina, you know, Zeeshan's listening over there. He's got his mic on, you know, because they're spying on Faraz and Nadia, and that's the point of me entering the
Yeah.
family." So that was kind of the joke, but I'll go back to
I
that
think
story.
yeah, so my family was thrilled. I think Zeeshan's family had a little bit of a hard time because they really wanted him to just be a basic Muslim, you know, basic Muslim. So when they saw he's like homeschooling and his wife's wearing hijab and they're like making, they really enjoyed our old social circle, and all of a sudden we were like
Yeah.
going in a
Yeah.
different route with a social circle they couldn't necessarily relate with.
That's
they
true.
they felt like we were kind of being
Our
they-
old
they were
social
worried
circle
about-
was right up their alley. Definitely. You're right. I never even thought about that.
yeah, they were comfortable with that social circle.
Yeah, they
And
still
so
like that social circle.
yeah. And so they had a hard time with it, but I think now that they're okay. And even with our boys, they were nervous about how they were going to turn out and what was this experiment that we were doing with them, you know. And you know, rightly so. They were like, we moved to America so you guys could have an American education. You guys are living in America and you're pulling your kids out of the system. Like, what's that all about, you know?
Yeah.
And
And we have the best schools. I mean, we're
Yeah.
in San Ramon, Danville, like border.
yeah, we're in
Like,
the
you have
top
the best
school
schools.
district.
You turned out okay. And it was, you know, it was a maverick idea to homeschool at that time. So nobody else had done it.
Yeah, and alhamdulillah, the proof's in the pudding. They're happy with the way their grandkids turned out, so we're okay now.
We get a pass.